Ready to have a good time? Can I get some head nods for those who are on camera? Thumbs up. This is an important topic for me, and I really want to thank you for participating. For those who don't know me, I am Darren Hollingsworth, and I am the founder and Chief Gratitude and Accountability Officer for Odonata Coaching. I work with clients in the nonprofit space who are nonprofit executives and fundraisers, board members, and donors, and I have found overwhelmingly LinkedIn to be underutilized in the nonprofit space. I think some people are averse to social media in general, and that's fine, but I think LinkedIn can really optimize your professional skills and your professional environment as well as your organization. So it's not just about posting a job or getting a job anymore. It's about peer-to-peer interaction. It's about relationship building. And isn't that what most nonprofit professionals got into this business to do, is build relationships? And I have found that LinkedIn relationships are authentic and can be targeted. They can be peer-to-peer, they can be learning, they can be for expert content and for really finding subject matter experts and connecting directly to them. Two quick examples. When I was with a major nonprofit organization that takes care of very, very sick children, I was in a market that we were building new relationships. So some of our team went into LinkedIn and searched to see if LinkedIn was in if that organization was in any LinkedIn profiles in the volunteer space. And guess what? We found one. That particular individual had a pretty deep relationship to the home office, and we were able to coordinate and get to know that person a lot better because of LinkedIn. Similarly, you may or may not know that I had a podcast called Working Gratitude. And when I was looking for guests, after I exhausted all of my friends that I knew were grateful friends, I wanted to go to some subject matter experts, and I began to reach out, kind of cold call. I've done fundraising for a long time and know the cold call, but I cold reached out on LinkedIn with a professional introduction. And that leads me to our first interaction with one of our guests today, and I'll give you that in a minute, but I'm going to give you a poll. As I've said, I'm super, super enthusiastic about this work, and I hope you'll get some humor out of particularly the first option in this poll. I hope you're seeing that. Do you see the poll? Can I get some head nods? All right. I've got some folks that can't remember their login, so that's understandable, folks. It happens a lot. I'm glad some of you are exploring content and building relationships. Some of you manage pages. All right, we've got 44 people in the room, 30 responses so far. I'm not sure, by the way, and I'm sorry, if you're connected mobily on your mobile device, you may not get the poll. I can't remember if that feature works, but there's a variety of levels of engagement with LinkedIn, and I think all of the panelists and I knew this, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to offer this to you in support of your work and your nonprofit. So I'm going to end that really quickly and just say, share the results with you. So if you can see that, we're in mixed company and good company, and I think you're going to benefit from today's conversation. So now then, I want to introduce you to someone who made an introduction to me. They made a really professional introduction, and I was so impressed that I reached out I connected with him, and sometimes I don't. If they're not connected to my business or we don't have mutual connections on LinkedIn, I'm reserved at times, as all of us should be for privacy and otherwise. But D'Angelo DeBerry reached out to me, and I want to read part of what he wrote. He said, since I've started my photography journey in August 2019, and I've worked with some amazing people and organizations during that time, the Memphis Symphony Orchestra, Christian Brothers High School, Memphis Film Works, University of Memphis University Club, and now looking to continue that growth and build long-lasting relationships. I want you to hear that. This to me is all about relationship building. Some people are going, some of our panelists even are going to talk probably more about branding your organization, but I use LinkedIn to build personal relationships. So D'Angelo, thank you for reaching out to me. I could tell that you had looked at my profile and knew that I might have access to or influence with event managers. And I'm a graduate of the University of Memphis, and we had mutual connections. So I want to thank you for reaching out to me, and you're part of the inspiration that made this happen today. What I would love for you to do is give people context about your crossover interaction with nonprofits as a photographer, self-employed person seeking to build those long-lasting relationships.
Well, hello, good morning to you all. Hope y'all having a wonderful day. I'm actually at a networking event right now. Had to find like a little quiet place to have this conversation because my headphones wasn't working. So thank you for reading the introduction. It's something I worked on, something I crafted. I want my message to convey whenever I reach out to people, because I'm reaching out to people. Like, you don't know me, you don't have a connection with me. So I want you to understand why I'm coming to you, and I just want to see if we can help each other in some type of way. So that's kind of what sparked the message. It's been, crafted to what it is now. And yeah, so I think I'm all about introducing myself and making connections and letting people know, like, hey, I am a photographer and maybe I can help you. Like, if you don't need a photographer, great. But if you do need a photographer, here's my work. Check me out, and if we can help each other, let's do it.
Nonprofits have lots of events, as you know, and as I've seen from your portfolios. So who knows who might be able to work with you, but I really do encourage you that that taking note of his specific language when you are doing an introduction for someone you either don't know or is a kind of a warm lead based on mutual connections. That I want everyone to be mindful of that. So D'Angelo, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for that outreach. And what I will do while our next speaker is, I'm going to put the content of your introductory message, if you don't mind me sharing, I'm going to put that in the chat so people can actually read it. Is that okay with you?
Yeah. Great.
Okay, up next is a person I met in person for the first time and was pitching LinkedIn specifically for fundraisers in the Jackson area. And as we sat around the table at this particular meeting, I could tell that Chris Kelly was engaged, but I also wanted to follow up with him. So I reached out on LinkedIn, we made a connection. His organization, which he'll tell you about, I could tell that he was using it professionally for himself as well as for his organization. And from there, I would love for you to just introduce yourself a little bit, Chris, and tell people what you think some of the top benefits for nonprofit professionals are. And thank you all for continuing to put your LinkedIn profile links in the chat. So go for it, Chris. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Darren. Can everybody hear me okay? Y'all nod? Well, as he said, my name is Chris Kelly, and I am the Director of Development and Donor Relations at JCOA in Jackson, Tennessee. We are a nonprofit that specializes in alcohol and substance abuse. I come from a for-profit background where LinkedIn was a tool that we used daily. And then after switching over to the nonprofit sector, I realized that that's not always the case. I didn't understand why nonprofits did not utilize LinkedIn as a tool. I think that when I first started here, I really quickly went and updated the organization's LinkedIn page. I tried to start creating some presence for JCOA in LinkedIn. And it was just a matter of planning posts and being intentional about what you want to share and who you want to share it with. Building our presence has really shown some great fruit. After about 3 months of this, we started noticing a big difference in engagement. We were getting on the platform. As I stated earlier, I am in charge of the development and donor relations, and developing an audience in LinkedIn. It directly correlates with the donor relations. The people that you'll see scrolling through on LinkedIn are possibly the wells of donors that you're going to have in nonprofit. So it's really important to cater to show them the impact that you're going to have and what your organization is doing. And this comes in handy when you're trying to seek out those new prospects for large donor gifts. People want to see what your organization is doing. A great way that I have found on LinkedIn is to do like what I call a timeline of posts. First, you want to make a post and express the needs, something that I can relate to that we just recently did. And I actually posted this morning on our the final post for this. So you express your needs. So we needed some bikes. We've got some people that don't have driver's license, people that can't get to AA meetings, people that can't get to their jobs. So we reached out to the community and made the post saying, hey, this is something that we need and it's very important to us. And sorry. And so after that post, it's always important to follow up the post after this drive was done. We came back and said, thank you so much for the support. What we have done is we have reached our goal, and then following up one last time with the impact. So we had a guy that needed a bike, and this guy was in tears, and we're able to share this story with people on LinkedIn. So they see from the beginning that we are somebody that's in need. Y'all met our needs, and now we are able to pass on what y'all have done for us to help others. And that's changing the community is what nonprofits want to do. And being able to communicate something like that through LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is amazing for sharing success stories. People want to be part of a change, especially when they know that something that they can see firsthand. This type of engagement with such a large audience, and it's at a moment's notice, is something that you can't get anywhere else. I believe that it is imperative for nonprofits to use this tool to share their story, to show their successes, to increase awareness of the services and impact they provide to the community. And if you have any questions or you want to share some successes or struggles with me, I'd love to hear them. You can follow other businesses that are like-minded to what you do and share the successes that you have with them. It's not coming out of your pocket. You're just, it's helping others grow. And our total goal is just to help others. So using any kind of platform that we can in order to share those things and the different ideas, I think is incredible. And thanks again, Darren, for putting this together, man. This is awesome.
Thank you, Chris. I think you hit on a couple of things about who you can follow. You can follow without having to make a direct connection, right? And LinkedIn mirrors so many of the other social media platforms. I just don't even like to call LinkedIn social media because to me it's a professional platform for building relationships. But you can follow people without having to connect with them. You can also follow hashtags. And I have done that in everything from nonprofit leadership to executive coaching to the gratitude work and compassionate leadership work that I'm now more engaged in for organizational culture. So thank you again, Chris. I invite you all to get to know JACOA better, even if you're outside of Jackson, because again, that one of the things that's great about LinkedIn is that sense of shared collaboration, collegiality, and all of that. And for you EDs that are on the call, you know that the ED role can be a lonely one because you report to a board and you have staff depending on you, and LinkedIn can be a great source for you. All right, now I want to introduce you to a couple of friends that I've gotten to know through some recent work with RIFA, the Regional Interfaith Association in Jackson, an organization that reaches out in the love of Christ to meet the spiritual and physical nutrition and hunger needs of the community. Kevin Adelsberger and his colleague Brittany Crockett, when I was in an interim role there, we engaged them to do the marketing communications function. And one of those, of course, was managing social media. And as we got to know each other, I realized they have such great depth in all the platforms, but I wanted them to give a perspective of some of the difference between the platforms. I've mentioned some of those, and just some of the maybe best practices that they see for nonprofits versus maybe for-profit clients. Kevin or Brittany, which of you are going to take it first?
I'll hop in and then hand it off to Brittany. We both have some observations to share. I think with with LinkedIn, one of the strengths is people are there for business. They're there for potentially educating themselves or connecting with other business people. They're not there for outrage necessarily. And we all know on Facebook and Twitter, and not so much as Instagram, but people are there for different reasons on those platforms. And so one of the strengths is the reason people are there. And so I think it's an opportunity to build a personal brand. I think we need to, I would advise most of you that, you're going to have probably more success with a personal page than with necessarily a business page. So, use that personal page as a megaphone for the platform that you're working on. Make professional connections to whoever. And then I would encourage you guys to, I've got everybody whose profile was clickable in the chat. I've opened up a window and I'll try to send requests to everybody later. But but I would say, for one thing, is that organic still works on LinkedIn. Facebook, it doesn't really work as well as it used to. I mean, for anybody who's been around for a minute, that it doesn't work like it used to. But LinkedIn can still be a powerful platform for organic posts. And so those are a couple of things that, observations from my perspective. Brittany?
Kevin, before we toss to you, Kevin, could you explain organic post? I think that's a good distinction.
Yeah. So organic, in our world, we divide social media posts into organic and paid for promotion. And so organic is what that platform is going to allow people to see without having to pay for it. Facebook, you used to get a lot of organic reach. Now you're lucky to get like 5% of the people who like your page on a standard post, unless you happen to get viral for some reason, which is very rare, and even then not as strong as it used to be. And so LinkedIn does have advertising options, and those will come from a brand page, but from a personal page, they kind of see I think I'm guessing here. I think they saw an opportunity from these other platforms taking away organic reach. They're like, well, it doesn't cost us anything to give people organic reach. Let's make this a platform where people can actually get organic reach, and they're going to potentially invest more time here. And I think we've seen some of that.
From my end,
and thanks, Brittany, for letting me interrupt there.
Sure. From my end, piggybacking on Kevin, it is, I agree obviously with everything he has to say, but also one thing I noticed is, LinkedIn, obviously I agree with everything he says because he's my boss. But also, it's less entertainment driven. When people are there, they're not there to scroll through it just to hang out. They're typically there for a reason. And so you have to give them a reason to stay there, with not entertainment, but insightful, good content, which is a little bit different than what we're looking for in other platforms. And I think the other thing that I really noticed with LinkedIn is the potential for nonprofits is much larger, I think, than some of the other platforms. Typically, you have a board of directors, you have people, engaged volunteers, engaged donors. They want to support you. That's why they're involved. And you have a built-in network, and this is an opportunity, a free opportunity for you to train them, to be able to support you with the other people that they are engaged with, the other businesses, the other business owners, the other people that they know. And so it has a lot more potential than some of the other ones, just based on, it's not the person from high school you knew. It's not, your cousin that's 3 states away. It's the people that you know and interact with daily, all the time. And so that potential is a lot higher to be effective.
You guys have articulated it exactly the way I've experienced it. I think my tip to all of you, If you serve on a board, please go in and put that volunteer service in your LinkedIn profile under the volunteer section and make that visible on your profile. It does, as Kevin used the word personal brand, it helps if you are ever looking for a job, it helps that employer see what you are engaged in your community. And for that nonprofit, particularly the nonprofit, and we can talk about this in more detail, and Anthony may address some of it, but Kevin did as well. Your nonprofit needs to have a landing page on LinkedIn, because you want that logo to show up in your professional profile, as well as when a board member kind of tags your organization for board service. That being said, you want to activate for your organization and have your board members activate for you through their personal profile. So Brittany and Kevin, thank you for the work that you do in Jackson, not only for RIFA, but for other nonprofits, and for all the great productions that you produce that are great perspectives of Jackson, Tennessee. So I want to thank you all again for including your LinkedIn profile link in the chat. I've seen a lot of those come through, and we are grateful. I want to now start to invite you to park your questions there. And all of us as panelists will be watching for those questions. And if it's something specific, you can also direct message someone, but we'll be watching chat for your questions. And then as you are willing, we'll call you on screen if there's something we don't understand about the question. So now then, let me introduce you to Anthony Jones. This is a very, I'll use your term, Kevin, a very organic connection from LinkedIn. Turns out we have lots of other intersections, but Anthony, I put a call out when you may have, I don't know how early you got engaged with this session, but I put a call out to find people who wanted to talk about this and be a panelist with me. And a colleague, a mutual colleague of mine and Anthony's, put his name, tagged his name in the comments. I went to his profile, I looked through it, I was like, this is the man. Like, he worked in a nonprofit. I'm not gonna over introduce you, but he has something a lot to say for us, because he does this a lot for individuals, nonprofits, and for-profit organizations. So there is a very organic connectability on LinkedIn. You've seen D'Angelo that I didn't know, and you've seen Anthony, and then you've seen these other colleagues that I do know. And I want to thank all of you. My heart is encouraged and inspired by all of the faces and names that I do see that are familiar. So thanks to all of you who have joined today. Now, Anthony, go ahead and describe your work to us, specifically, if you will, that nonprofit connection, and share with us your vast knowledge, my friend.
Well, happy to, Darren. Thanks again for having me. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks to everyone for joining us this morning. Yeah, so for almost 20 years, I worked for Ducks Unlimited. For those of you who aren't familiar, headquartered in Memphis, world leader in wetland and waterfowl conservation. And I had the privilege to lead a team responsible for all digital marketing initiatives for the organization. So we oversaw the website, online fundraising, social media, mobile app development, email marketing, and so forth. And as far as like where LinkedIn comes into play, you know, our team oversaw all social media platforms, but about 4 or 5 years ago, LinkedIn was kind of coming onto our radar, but it was the one social media network that I had like zero experience with. The only time I ever went to LinkedIn in my 15 years working there is if I needed to hire someone for my team. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to be responsible for social media, I need to like get involved in the platform. Long story short, I started posting content. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what was appropriate. I had no idea what to post. At times, I felt like I wasn't qualified to post because I didn't see myself as an expert. As I later came to know, that's imposter syndrome, and like that's one of the biggest barriers that keep people from even being active on LinkedIn in the first place. But I dove in, and over the course of a couple of years, I made over 1,000 posts that somehow built my network up to 39,000 followers. And in 2020, when COVID hit, all of a sudden I had people start reaching out to me, basically saying, hey, would you help me with my profile? Would you help me with my content? Because people were losing jobs. People were afraid they may lose a job, or they just had spare time on their hands because of the lockdown. And all of a sudden LinkedIn was becoming important to them. And because I had been building my personal brand, if you will, posting content, over the course of a couple of years, people saw me as someone who knew the platform well. And, I started out helping people, giving free advice, but over the course of a few months, that actually turned into a side business that I'd never expected, never planned on. And then over the course of the next year and a half, that side business had gained up enough momentum that in November of last year, it was time to either go all in on this business or not. And I made the terrifying decision back then to take the leap, to start this consulting business. And it's been the most challenging thing I've ever done professionally, but it's also been the most rewarding. And now I really enjoy working with people both in the for-profit sector and in the nonprofit sector, really unlock the power of LinkedIn to build their personal brands, to help their organizations leverage the power of their employees to build their personal brands. Because one of the biggest mistakes that companies make in both for-profit and nonprofit sectors is they put all of their emphasis on the company page. And Darren alluded to this earlier. And I'll tell you a story. A couple of weeks ago, I had a recruiting company, for-profit, reach out to me and ask for a consulting proposal. What can we do better on LinkedIn? And they went on to tell me that they had a company page with 14,000 followers, and they were really proud of that. And that's a respectable number. It's a great number. They got a total number of about 30 employees. And as I was putting the presentation together, I went through and I added up all the connections among those 30 employees. And when I did the math, their total network reach was 123,000 people combined among their employees. And when I went back to that company, I said, your company page is great, but your secret weapon is this 123,000 people who are connected to your employees. And right now, all they're doing is just resharing job post after job post after job post, and they're not actually using it to build their personal brand. And like, that's the same opportunity that so many nonprofits have. You have your employees who are passionate about the cause, passionate about the organization, but they don't know what to post. They don't have any real policies that support them in being active on LinkedIn. In fact, I've looked at a lot of social media policies over the years, and while it's important that policies exist, most of them are so restrictive in nature that employees are like, I'm scared I'm going to lose my job if I say the wrong thing on LinkedIn. But companies really need to take that other approach, the opposite approach, and be supportive. Give them guide rails, give them guidance, but support them and encourage them to be active on LinkedIn, because at the end of the day, people connect with people. They don't connect with brands on that same level. People give to people. People trust people more than any type of organizational brand. So that's really what I teach in personal branding. And just because you have a LinkedIn profile doesn't mean you have a personal brand. Your brand is defined through your content. It's defined through the interactions that you have with others on the network, supporting the content of others. And what's been said several times already, just building those unique relationships. That's really the power of LinkedIn. And that was a really long-winded introduction there, Darren.
Well, you touched on a lot of things, and I think we will get some additional questions, and I'll get to one that we already have in just a moment. But I think that the overwhelming experience that I've had on LinkedIn is, and it's really in my fundraising career and overall in my professional career, when you're seeking to build a relationship, that means mutually beneficial. Okay. You want to add value to someone's life in the professional environment, frankly, in your personal life too, perhaps, but you want to add value to the experience of getting to know you. I go back to D'Angelo because I put that in the chat for all of you. He made it seem like he had read my profile. Okay. How many inbox messages have all of you gotten who are active on LinkedIn that are totally irrelevant to your business. As a self-employed person, believe me, I get tons. And even people who think they're adjacent to my nonprofit work, or 5 jobs ago when I was a Merrill Lynch Series 7 licensed financial advisor. Okay, so I keep that on my profile because I think it's relevant to my nonprofit work with executive leaders and financial planners that may influence fundraising decisions. But I think the goal for LinkedIn for me is to be mutually beneficial to the people that I connect with and share information. So that in some ways sounds a little Pollyanna, I think, and it's authentic. And that's where I've built experience with that. I want to go ahead then and encourage everyone to put questions in chat. And any of our panelists can probably answer this, but from, I hope I'm saying the name correct, Eris Edgerly has asked, how do I get a nonprofit business account? Anthony, do you want to take a stab at that?
So you can, I believe, and I haven't set one up myself, so I'm just kind of brainstorming here, but I believe anyone can go in and create a company page. And that's basically what you do for your nonprofit. You're creating a company page, even though it says company, and that's where you can brand it as a nonprofit, upload your logo, your content and so forth. I don't recall offhand, I'd have to look inside LinkedIn to actually walk you through the steps, but it's basically creating a company page.
So I've created several, and I want to point out a couple of things. Brittany, thank you for that link, because I love having links that are relevant. And that one is particularly relevant. For setting up a page, the help function in LinkedIn really does work well. You have to kind of do some validation. You also need to be careful in setting up a page and having multiple managers and admins, because if God forbid something catastrophic happens to someone or someone leaves an organization, others need to be able to have access to the page. So that's one of my biggest cautions about setting that up. And Eris, if you want to message me directly on LinkedIn, we can talk some more about the specifics. Another great tool on LinkedIn for nonprofits, I believe, and I've used this with the Jackson Fundraising Professional as well as the West Tennessee nonprofit network, is groups. You may be familiar with groups on Facebook. LinkedIn groups are somewhat the same, somewhat different. Some of them can be very locked down so that you're not getting spam from salespeople and consultants, and I'm not dissing on them because I are one, but you can create a group that is very specific to content and a very shared interest. So more information about that in messaging. Brittany's link I thought was great. Thank you for sharing that. Stefan Stoltzfus has asked, how do you build a personal brand as an employee of an organization that does not yet have a business page? Great question. And if you would ever move on to another company, what happened to the visibility of my current organization? I would offer Anthony or any of the others to chime in there.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I get variations of this question all the time. And the short answer is your profile is that's your personal profile. That is your opportunity to build your personal brand. And so like when I was working full-time at Ducks Unlimited, yes, I was employed there. And I was building my brand around both my own personal content as well as the organization's content. But I always wanted to make sure that if I ever left for any reason, that I would be able to kind of keep my network and transfer that personal brand into whatever new venture that might be. But a lot of companies look at those personal brand or the profiles and feel like they own those profiles. And the truth is they don't. They own the company page And yes, they do rightly have the right to give folks social media policy and give employees guide rails, but that's your personal brand, and you should treat it as such. So, in terms of the types of content that you post, it needs to be relevant to whatever you are involved in at that, stage in your career or your life. Obviously, the content I posted 2 or 3 years ago is very different from the content that I post now, with one exception, and that is content about me. And the biggest mistake people make on LinkedIn, aside from not posting at all, is they feel like everything has to be completely career related and buttoned up and polished and professional because this is LinkedIn. But the content that I've posted over the years that just showed me, my family, my hobbies, things that I'm doing on the weekend, that's the content that resonates with people because it's relatable. And it's not just a reshare of a job posting or sharing a press release from the CEO. It's that type of content. And then if you transition to another job, another career, start your own business, you can still kind of carry that personality across. And like now, if you look at my profile, if you follow my content, most of it is focused on using LinkedIn to generate leads, to grow your network, to land more clients, and build employee brand ambassador programs. So just keep that in mind. It's your personal brand, but make sure your content is fitting whatever your organization or mission you're involved with at any given time.
Kevin, Chris, or Brittany, do either of you have anything to add to that particular question? Because it's a great one.
No, I think that he touched on every bit of what needed to be said there from my standpoint.
Great. And Chris, thank you. And I'll call everyone's attention to the chat. We had a question from Elise White that says, are religious nonprofits, churches, eligible for profiles on LinkedIn? And absolutely yes. So because I've worked in an interim role at RIFA, the Regional Interfaith Association, I have worked to make sure that RIFA is connected to churches in the Jackson community. And I see some of them do have pages and some don't. Brittany or Kevin, any comments or anything that's been sparked from the conversation so far? All right. I have from my friend and colleague, Paul Augustiniak at AFSP Tennessee. I will get to his question in a moment, but I wanted to address what Anthony said about sharing personal information. If you've known me very long or you've followed my profile, you know I've had a mental health journey. I had a significant mental health crisis in 2018. And as I healed and got back to work in early 2019, and so I want to emphasize it was a long journey in 2018. But in 2019, when I came back, I wrote an article, and that's a whole feature of LinkedIn that I want to make sure you all know about. Is in addition to short form posts and photographs, you can create articles that are like blog entries and that have a lot of credibility in what is in your point of view. So many of my articles on LinkedIn relate some to gratitude in the workplace, because that's been a huge portion of my research and career, but also about my own mental health. And that's where I got very personal, very vulnerable, and needed to let that be known about me. I have become a volunteer, a dedicated volunteer for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and have worked to include that in my volunteer space on my LinkedIn profile, so that others who may be interested in the topic can be stigma-free, coming to me to reach out. Now then, with that little introduction, Paul, you have asked, we're attempting to make more executive and leadership connections at and with nonprofit organizations. What are some effective tactics here? Chris, you've done some good work, I think, in making connections locally for JCOA. Do you have any perspective of some of the best tactics that you've used?
I'm sure what what I did was I looked for best practices amongst other people that are in similar roles as me. And now nonprofits, there's service nonprofits that work one-on-one with the public, and then there are other types of nonprofits. So like I tried to focus on nonprofits that were very similar, and so I would reach out to those people that they've already made all the mistakes, man. They've been through it. And I'm very new to the nonprofit industry. So there's so many, and I've asked you lots of questions, Darren, there's so many things that I do not know. And people are willing to help. All you have to do is ask. And so if you reach out to somebody and you say, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, they're going to connect with you. And you can build relationships that are incredible without ever having a coffee with somebody, and just shooting over your successes. Having a place to vent with other like-minded people is very important for your mental health, as well as for growth of business. Whenever they will think about you when they have a program that they're going to launch. And if they can somehow partner with you, they will reach out, or you reach out to them. Building partnerships is what it's all about. The communication is very important. And I guess that's really about all I've got there.
I would potentially add that it can be a great research tool. So, if you've got people that you're thinking could be a good fit for that connection, Paul, you can use LinkedIn to confirm that they're a good person for that connection, and look at who might be a mutual contact that could introduce you.
I think both of those are fantastic points. I would also just add that, if you're ever having trouble getting someone's attention on LinkedIn, like maybe a CEO, an executive, someone that's really busy, like one of the best ways to get their attention is to support their content. Because as content creators, we remember the names and faces of those who like our post, who leave meaningful comments. And that is a fantastic way to open the door to a conversation in the DMs or a phone call. And so a little hack to do that, if you're wanting to get in front of someone, go to their LinkedIn profile, look underneath their profile banner, the big banner image at the top, bottom right, there's a little bell. It's a new feature LinkedIn rolled out. You can click that bell and you will be notified every time that person makes a post. And when you get that notification, like go to their post, like it, and try to find a way to leave a meaningful comment supporting that. And one more tip there, when you do that, be sure you tag that person, because it's going to be more likely they're going to see it. And it also exposes your comment to other people in their network, thus adding more visibility to you. So
I'd like to add to that. I'm not sure the exact question, but it sounds like it's involving connecting with people that you want to get connected with. One of my techniques is I not only target that person, but I also target people close to them. Like I might get some emails and send some emails out. I remember one time it was this organization I wanted to get in contact with, and I emailed like a lot of people from the department. And by the time I got a response from her, she said, "I am so impressed. Like everyone from our department sent me this message." And like it takes stuff like that. So like I wanted to work with U of M. I didn't just target one person. I target like a lot of people that was connected to U of M. And sometimes if they're not the right person, they will point you to the right person you need to be in contact with.
You all are really highlighting some of the things that I have experienced. You develop that organic way of being with people. I think LinkedIn, particularly during pandemic, and I have come to prefer it to what I call a grip and grin business card exchange. You go to a meeting or a networking event, many people are trained to be all about themselves and hand you their business card and never hear who you are. On LinkedIn, you can have that mutual relationship building over time based on content. And you can also discern people in relationships you might not want to be as engaged with. And you can do that non-offensively. Kevin used a term earlier about how I don't know your language, Kevin, but sometimes toxic some of the other social media platforms are. I think people behave pretty well on LinkedIn, knowing that it is a professional platform. It's kind of like water cooler talk. It's like, would you talk about topics? And to Anthony's point, would you talk about your kids, your pets, your hobbies at the water cooler with someone when you were in a in-person environment? And if so, I think that's LinkedIn worthy. And Karen McAllister has just posted that she's always respectful when people do message and always respond if the person if she could assist in any way. Karen, thank you for being here today. And yes, that's a great insight. Courtesy among those messages that you are not, and LinkedIn helps you with some auto responses. And if you use those auto responses, people definitely know that you are potentially interested or not interested in their work. And what I also do when a connection reaches out to me, for example, through promoting this workshop, I got a lot of new connections and I was thrilled. What happens, I'm sorry, there's a background noise. What happens is I'll see it and I'll see a logical connection. I always like a message quickly with that connection request, and I encourage you to do that. I do LinkedIn Premium so that I can send a few more in mails, but that's been productive for me as a self-employed person. But I want to encourage you to have some sense of meaningful dialogue. Ask the person a question. My question, as you might have gathered, I ask the person, what are you grateful for at work today? And it's a non-imposing question. I frequently get a response that, oh, wow, I've never been asked that question. And I think people we all like to talk about ourselves, you know, and fundraising people, particularly in the nonprofit sector, learn quickly, it's not about me. So we try to learn to not talk about ourselves quite as much. And the same thing applies for LinkedIn relationships. All right, folks, we're closing in on a time that I want to make sure that we're respectful of your time. And if there are any additional questions, I encourage you to put them in chat. If we can get to them, we will. If not, I will be saving the chat, and to let all of you know how to save chat. I'm guessing many do, but over in the chat window, there's an ellipsis next to the little smiley face, and that is where you can save chat. And just be mindful of where it saves to on your computer. Do we have any other last thoughts from any of our panelists or any other questions that we can help address?
Just want to say thank you for putting this together, Darren.
You bet. I love connecting people, building relationships, and sharing information. I don't have an advanced degree, but I'm a sponge for research and information about the things that I'm passionate about. So thanks to all of you panelists. If you have not already done so, please take an extra minute and put your LinkedIn profile link in the chat so that others can find you and get acquainted with you and your work and your organizations. We certainly hope you learned something today and that you found value, you were edified and encouraged, and that you and your organization benefit from the work you've helped us do today. We want to continue to build relationships. Each of the panelists wants to help. They did this for free so that they can help other nonprofits and other nonprofit leaders, be they staff or board, advance their mission and their work. So let any of us know if we can help you specifically. Now, I would not be a good fundraising professional if I did not ask to continue this relationship specifically. My next panel discussion that I'm gathering is one that I'm very, very passionate about as well, that's very specific to fundraising. The working title is Board Member Roles in Fundraising or Not. Why not every board member should be required to fundraise. I can't wait to talk to you about this. Guess where you can find more information? On my LinkedIn feed. So LinkedIn is the place that I use to promote not only events, but content. And I want to make that distinction as well. So frequently, I think I've seen businesses and nonprofits on other platforms really, drilling into the event space to promote the next thing. This is one of the first events I've promoted on LinkedIn because I'm sensitive to that. But I will be sharing information about board roles in fundraising sometime in September, so watch that. I will leave the room open for you for a few minutes to be able to save that chat and include any additional questions there that we may be able to follow up and answer for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope it was useful. Go make it a great and grateful day.
Thank you, Darwin. I appreciate it. Man, I'm so honored to be a part of this. So, man, thank you a lot. I'm glad that DM inspires you so much. It's really good to hear feedback. I heard too many feedback from the actual content of the message. So, man, I appreciate that. I
was all over it, and I believe me, my outreach messages for new connections have changed, even in that because of my experience with you. So thank you, and I definitely have enjoyed following your work too. You've got a great eye and a wonderful perspective in your art and craft. So thanks for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I hope everybody has a good day.
Pardon?
I said, I hope everybody has a good day.
I do too. I do too. Thank you all for your kind remarks and affirmations in the chat. So grateful to all of you who have been here with us. Polita, I just saw you pop up. It's nice to see you. I hope we get to reconnect again soon. I'll follow up with you because I was actually at a composer showcase recently and I had a great time.
Can't wait.
Yeah. All right. I hope everyone has had a chance to save the chat. I'm going to stop our recording now.